With God, there is always more. More love, more life, more freedom. Welcome to Zoe's Exploring More with Michael Thompson. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "Our Heavenly Father has provided many delightful ends for us along our journey, but He takes great care to see that we do not mistake any of them for home." Join me and the team as we explore the kingdom together, discovering the deep truths and offering encouragement for the journey. There is always more.
Welcome back, listeners, to the Exploring More podcast. I'm Serena, the audio engineer. Today we will feature Josh Wilson from the Uncensored Advice for Men podcast. He and Michael will be discussing Rebuilding Who I Am.
Hey guys, welcome back to Uncensored Advice for Men. My name's Josh. I'm the host of this show, and you guys ask advice, right? So you're dudes out there looking for real advice. You're not looking for watered down things. You want to be a real man. You want to learn, grow. You want to learn about things about relationships, belief systems, sex, drugs, rock and roll, right? You want to ask the questions. So you ask them to me, and I go out to my network and I ask on your behalf, and then I report back into you. So if you have things in your life right now that you need help with, you want to ask some advice, head on over to uncensoredadviceformen.com, fill out a quick form, and I'll report back in as I find out the information. So today's show is going to be a little different, and I'm terrified, to be honest. This makes me really nervous. I'm going to hand off the microphone to a friend, an ally, an advisor of mine. We did an interview in June. The title of the show was, "What Does a Disorientated Man Look Like?" He's the executive director, I believe, of a nonprofit. His name's Michael. Michael, I'm going to hand over the microphone and control to you.
Yeah.
I'm scared.
Oh, man, it's going to be great. So yeah, listeners, this was an offer, not a challenge, but an offer to Josh as we've been talking about the last probably 60 days, had a couple conversations. And after about the third one, I said, Josh, you may want to think about sharing this, getting on the other side of the interviewee process that you do so well, and be someone who's sharing, from their life. And I think listeners, therefore, right, when we step into a little different role, first times often have those butterflies, if not terrified. That's the word you use. So,
Yeah.
Anyway, and I think you'll understand why I asked him by the end of the show and what we're hopeful for. I think this is one of those games where after kickoff, you're not quite sure where it's all going to go, but that's okay. We know we win in the end, and so we'll play, right?
Yeah, let's dive in. Let's do it.
Yeah. If you haven't seen, I know it was on LinkedIn. I'm not sure where else it was posted, but that's where I saw it. Josh posted several minutes of himself in his father's garage. You want to just talk about that for 1 second, because that's what kind of turned the corner for me of what you were feeling, what you're looking at. So let's start there, and then we'll go into some more of the story, why you're in his garage. But just talk a little bit, Josh, about that moment that you turned on the camera. So you went exposure on yourself, if we can use that word. But yeah, talk about that, please.
So I exposed myself on camera. No, I didn't do that. So guys, taking you back to, I was in the garage, in my dad's garage, and I was organizing it, right? So I grew up on a construction site, swinging hammers since I was 5 years old, right? And my dad accumulated a lot of tools, and we've built a lot of stuff together. And he passed away in August. So we're recording this interview. Today's December 5th. And I just remember going through his garage, and as I was cleaning stuff out, there was something super comforting in organizing his stuff. And as I was organizing his stuff, I was also thinking about organizing my life. And I just know that when you have a show or when you start to make momentum, there's going to be a lot of things that come to you, right? It's a magnet almost. When you got a few followers over here on LinkedIn and you got a few followers over here on the podcast, like things start to accumulate, just like tools accumulated in my dad's garage. So I found great comfort cleaning out his garage and helping my mom, because it's her stuff now. So just organizing stuff and, hey mom, here's the things that you could sell. Here's the things that you should keep. Here's the things that you should give to your grandkids. And just thought about in life in general, like when you start to do things, things accumulate. and then it just gets so disorientating and disorganized. So I just made a quick little video talking about this is how cleaning out your garage translates to the business world. So I guess it was a couple of weeks ago I posted that. That's where I was at.
Time out. Where can they find it so that they can go see that in context of what we're talking about? And then I want to continue.
Yeah, great question. So what I'll do is I'll put that in the show notes. So guys, if you're listening in and you're on LinkedIn, I'll post the link to that video. It was only a few minutes, but you can go back and watch that. But I'll post that in for you guys.
Good. So because I had seen that and had a couple other conversations with Josh, I think I said to you after seeing that in our conversation, and I want to bring this into the very reality of what you're sharing, that here you're in the garage, and I said, what a treasure hunt. What a scavenger hunt that must have been.
Yeah. Treasure hunt, scavenger hunt. You definitely have a way with words, because as I was going through stuff, right? He's been in construction for 50 years or so.
Yeah.
And so a lot of stuff accumulated, but I just remember like seeing, new tools, because we had to, as we were building stuff, technology got better. And I remember like used to carrying saws, and they were 30-pound saws, and now they're like plastic and 5 pounds. So very, very different technologies and such. But I remember opening boxes and seeing like antique tools.
Yeah, archives are available now. That's right.
I used to use these things. And now we hang them up on the shelf to memorialize him. And we're in the office, and I see a framing square up there that probably has his blood from, using razor knives and
at least sweat, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Definitely a treasure hunt.
When I think about that, Josh, and what you were saying a minute ago about the creative process, and here I believe God ambushes you with, I think I'll go out in the garage and organize some stuff, and it becomes something much, much, much larger. And that is such a great story for the larger story a man is in. We don't know when these holy ambushes, but I think we miss many of them. I don't think it was your intention to step into the garage and then to be flooded. It was a courageous thing to do. Maybe you knew, after breakfast, I need to go straighten this up. And that evolved. And that's what our lives do, is we give way to this creative process of the artist, of the author, of the podcaster, of the interviewer, of God in our lives, and the commentary and the discoveries and all of this stuff. I just think it's a huge reality. Your moment was a metaphor for something that's very real, very large, and very important. And so touching those things, walking into some nostalgia, into the archives, right? Men, what's back there that needs to be touched? What's back in your story that needs to be explored and examined? We live through the front windshield, the front door. As men, I think we just press into this, Josh. And here's what I want to turn into. Living that way to the next thing, I'm afraid doesn't give our hearts, minds, bodies, and souls much chance to grieve or reflect. And it's a very kind thing to do for your heart, to reflect. Take time to not just what just happened, but to explore what is happening, because our stories are fluid, our stories are moving, and they're moving to certain goodness. That's the promise of God. If it's not good, he's going to make good. Obviously, loss, COVID, and death, these are ultimate losses, and you've been experiencing that. So I was proud of you. When I saw that garage a couple moments, I was like, whoa, that's so much bigger than most people will probably know. That was one thing I wanted to bring out. And then secondly, I want to use that to talk a little bit about your dad and to let you share what happened. He passed August, Joshua Bruce Wilson. There's a Josh in there, Josh Wilson.
So I'm Joshua Bruce Wilson, and my father was Bruce Wilson. So I was named after my father.
Yeah, I like that. So he passed August 5th. Could you tell us that story, how that happened?
My dad was raised in a very broken, challenging home. Yeah, he grew up in the Northeast. His father was really, really tough on him. He was a businessman. And my dad, he had a few brothers and sisters, some from different parents, and there's a lot of mixture in there. But my dad's kind of the rule was, kids should be seen, not heard. Don't embarrass me. My dad, for love or attention, had to really try to excel, which I think drove him into being a perfectionist and striving to be the best, probably just to get the love of his father, right? So my dad growing up, to get his attention, him and my Uncle Billy were very Dennis the Menace, right? They were terrorists in the neighborhood, constantly getting in fights with the bullies and the kids. And
that is so funny because there's a Mr. Wilson in
there is
the story. Anyway,
we hear that all the time.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so they were menaces, taking my grandpa's rifles and shooting heavy equipment and breaking cars and like stealing things and constantly in fights. These guys were maniacs and they were tough kids. My dad was a state champ wrestler in Pennsylvania or Delaware, one of the two. I don't really remember.
Some wrestling coach got a hold of those boys, didn't he? Figured out,
yeah,
we can channel that, or else he volunteered. I mean, I can legally throw some guys around. That sounds good.
Yeah, I think my dad was so filled with hate and anger that he just really excelled at a sport where you're allowed to hurt people. After that, he quickly raised his hand and was on a airplane flying over to Vietnam, and he became a paratrooper in the Army. This is a badass dude. This guy was shot twice. He crashed a helicopter. He was laying in a rice paddy, and a Viet Cong came and bandaged him and spilled his guts in the rice paddies. My dad spent months laying in a bed in Japan, and he's got Purple Hearts and he's got Bronze Stars. I was raised by a tough man. He went over there as a hero, came back as a baby killer, right? When people were walking
of all that, and the whole protest, sure.
So this is the guy who raised me, and there's some cool stories in that about how God redeemed his heart. But man, I remember I was always allowed to fight. I was a tough kid because I was raised by a tough man. I was allowed to fight. The only rule was, Josh, you're not allowed to start the fight. You could end it, but you're not allowed to start. So I just remember going and needing to express anger. Now, my mom's side of the family, super religious, Christian. Dad's side of the family, super wild, warriors. So I'm kind of in the middle of trying to be a good guy, and I got this fire in my gut. And I just remember needing to express it and wanting to fight, needing to fight. And I would just egg people on until finally they just released the punch. And then I was able to attack. Yeah, permission. He would pick me up and he'd get called into the principal's office multiple times. And he would say, Josh, did you start the fight? And I was like, nope. He goes, did you finish it? I was like, yeah. And then he would take me out for ice cream. Not that he was promoting fighting, but that I was able to stand up for myself. And I just abused that. That was the beginnings of raising me and who my dad was.
Right. Wow. Can you share a little bit with the listeners about the temperament of that, the conversion of that in him, and how you saw Jesus move in and bring to that toughness, a kingdom toughness?
Oh, so I grew up in the church, and I think my dad tried his hardest to fit in to the church. But when my dad came back, he got himself into trouble for a little bit. He tried to figure himself out. He got into construction, which I think was a good outlet for him to build something and create something. He found my mom. They got married, had a ton of trouble in the marriage, but my mom would have to wake him up. He would be in the backyard in his underwear with a flashlight and a handgun. And my mom would be like, what are you doing? And he would wake up out of a night terror, right? PTSD. And he was the guy in the church that was on security detail. So this is funny. Even when he was in his 70s, I would come visit him and we would go to church, and I'd give my dad a hug and I'd feel at least one weapon on him, and he would wear a badge, and he just loved having that earpiece in, and wherever he goes, he would transfer protection mindset.
Right.
So growing up in church, I think he tried so hard to fit into this Christian churchies, you wear a tie and you're a deacon and you're an usher, but I just don't think it was a fit for him. On the weekends, here's what would happen is they would host a rally or something like that to hold up signs to stop abortion, and this was something my dad was adamant about, is protecting life.
Yeah, protesting.
Sure. And whether people listening in agree or don't agree, this guy defended life. And I remember him getting arrested as a young kid for his belief system. So that was more of my dad than the guy in the church with a tie and, trying to really fit. My dad was more of a warrior, a creator, a warrior. He was a man's man. Like, after he passed away, I got so many calls from guys, I would call him like Uncle Vinny, a guy that I knew my whole life. And I'd get calls and he goes, you don't know how instrumental your dad was. He was a mentor because he was a real man. Like, there's a lot of people in the church that are just so fake. This dude, as best as he could, was a real man. Once you got to know him, people, especially guys who want to be authentic, want to be real, rough around the edges, don't really fit into a normal box. My dad was the dude for him.
Yeah.
We're going to take a quick break here and learn a little more of what's going on in the world of Zoe.
Hey listeners, it's SJ. Just want to give you an update on upcoming events in 2021. You know, the purpose of Zoe events is to create a safe space where men, women, and couples can encounter God, experience Him in wonderfully intimate ways, and enter into life-changing transformation. We want to invite you to get away with God, unplug from all the noise, the busyness, and the demands of everyday routine, and invite Jesus to take you through your story. The moments or seasons in your life that He wants to heal and restore in order to shape you more fully into who you truly are. That happens over and over again throughout the Bible. Regular folks encounter an incredible God, experience His love, and they are never the same. We have 3 events coming up in 2021. March 18th through the 21st is our Heart of a Warrior Allies Advanced Weekend. April 8th through the 11th is the Women's Deepening Weekend. And then April 29th through May 2nd is the Heart of a Warrior Encounter for Men. Visit zoe.org/events for more information.
Welcome back as Michael and Josh continue discussing rebuilding who I am.
Big, hard question as he passes. And I know there's some COVID involved and it happened quickly. Any details you want to share there before I drop the next big question?
Sure. So he went from super healthy working on a job site, and I would help my dad on the job site. So we would work in the morning because, after being shot multiple times, crashing helicopters, he's crashed big equipment. Like he was an adventurist. His shoulders were just shot. Still, he was an expert craftsman, but he wasn't able to just lift heavy stuff. And
Right.
God built me with broad shoulders and a strong back. So I would go to the job site with him in the mornings before my own work. I'd help him, and then I'd walk home, and that's when I had my own time. So July, we were working on a job site. This is 2020. He gets sick, and August 5th, he's dead. We went into the hospital, and there's some stuff I'm just not allowed to talk about at the moment. But
Yeah.
he went in, and then boom, he's dead. Like, what the hell just happened? Our whole family's like, are you kidding? What happened? It happened fast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm so sorry.
Man.
What part of you died when he died?
Oh man, maybe good and bad stuff. Growing up, I was taught to be tough and to run through brick walls, never quit. Josh, I don't care what is going on, you will never quit. I just remember, because I was a wrestler too, and then I got into other adventures, but I just remember, like, I don't care how strong the guy was that I was going against.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just would not quit. You would never see Josh quit. And sometimes, or a lot of times in wrestling, I just wore people out. I was in the firefighter Olympics for soccer, and I suck at soccer, terrible. But the coach would say, all your job to do is, Josh, is wear out their best player. That was how I was wired and groomed from Bruce, is don't give up. Like, that is done well in the business world or in anything that I put my mind to. I'll just keep going at it, and I'll keep it going for decades. And I just will not quit it. It will bankrupt our family. I've been bankrupt.
Right. To the detriment is what you're saying. Yeah.
You got it. Just running through things until someone makes me quit. They fire me, or I'm on the verge of breakdown, standing on the bridge thinking of killing myself, right? I just will not quit. So I think one of the things that kind of died in me when my dad passed away, for a moment, maybe even now, it's not too much longer, is a lot of that drive. What am I driving so hard for? Right. Yeah. And I think a part of that I've got to make a name for myself. And a lot of it, to be honest, was I wanted to get to a place financially where my dad didn't have to work and him and I could do things that we wanted.
That's powerful. Powerful motive. Sure. That can't be wrong, but a powerful motive nonetheless.
Yeah. So I think a part of the good or bad, whatever, a part of the Josh that died was the Josh who could sit in front of a phone and just make phone calls all day. When I was doing real estate, like I could just make calls all day, prospect all day, knock on doors all day, get rejection, go, whatever, next. But when dad died, like a lot of that fire of, I'll just brute force do it. I would look at the list and I couldn't do it. Or people would be like, hey, we want you to help build this business or whatever. And I'm like, I don't have it in me right now. And it scared me. That's what I was used to.
Yeah, the influence of a father, that system that he operated from, the heritage that he then provided, don't start to fight, but finish. Never, 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 never quit. We don't quit. There's times and places for that in every man's life. That's important. But when it goes like this, you're going to find a very, very driven man where productivity and the objective of the job is more important than people.
Yeah.
He'll sacrifice family, marriage. I would say to the listeners, there's things that you're reflecting on even now, Josh, that we need to give attention to what's in our system. What current events are inviting me to explore what's in my system that no other events would invite me to see, explore in a garage, the garage of my heart, the attic of my heart, the basement of my heart. There's stuff in there that I would say part of the gift of this podcast is, men, what's going on in there? Are you feeling it? We can't just live as men with two feelings, lust and anger. That's not going to work. And to start to really ask some of those questions, what am I feeling? What's this loss feel like? And expand the color board shades of this. That's the grieving process that I wanted you to share with listeners, which I so appreciate, honored to hear.
Yeah. So you made a good point is this, what am I feeling? So I'm going to touch that in 1 second because I think us guys, we don't know a lot of times
That's
because
right.
we have two main feelings, right?
Mhm.
You say lust and anger. I'm horny or I want to break something. And sometimes they just overlap. In the garage, what I found is there was a lot of accumulation of junk. And something was soothing when I was doing it physically, cleaning out junk, because my dad had good stuff in the garage, nice tools.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's just junk. Like, why did you even keep this? This was a broken piece of plumbing that we could never salvage. There was trash in there too. So there's treasure and trash.
Good.
And a lot of times in our garage, it just accumulates. You guys are going to notice this too in the world of business or whatever. We're in the year 2020. So in your inbox, on your calendar, on your time, you're going to have messages and you're going to have people pulling. There's going to be treasure and trash. And there's just so much stuff. So I was talking in the video that you guys could reference is this inbox zero mentality of replying to every message or addressing everything in your life is just impossible, especially when you start to get more and more people dependent on you or more followers or more influence. It's just, you can't do it. And I think being able to start removing trash from your world so that you could focus more on the treasure. And I'm not saying everything's bad even too, but there's some good things, some good treasure that you have to just go, not for me. I just can't do it. Can't do it all. So that cleaning of your mind helps create focus. And that physical act of me doing that in my garage helped me think through my life a little bit about what kind of trash and treasure do I need to just remove from my world right now? And who do I need to focus on and who do I just ignore or tell them, hey, not for me. Sorry. Goodbye. That's what I felt there. And then that's kind of how it applied to your inbox or your calendar, or just your life in general, your brain, your mind. I was reading the Bible early in the morning, probably like 5 o'clock in the morning the other day. And my mind was like being beaten down by myself and maybe by the enemy. And, we could touch on that, but like what am I feeling?
Yeah.
That is so hard for dudes, especially, if you haven't been trained or raised to really think of your feelings.
Yeah.
We're afraid of exposing those of our own self. What am I feeling? I don't want to know, like, what if I don't like what I'm going to find?
Oh, yeah. Even to touch on that question. Yeah. What if you don't like it? That's part of the invitation is what if I don't like it? You're talking about the accumulation. I love this illustration of reality of a garage, an attic, a basement. In this physical realm, it's true in the spiritual realm for sure. This accumulation of things that have happened in your journey. So the man who says, I don't have time for that. Oh my gosh, just like you, I want to ask that man, where did you hear that? When did that become part of your 10 commandments? Who taught you that? How did life teach you that? I mean, there are things like that that drive us that we've never examined. Obviously, this has been disruptive, but not just the parting of your dad, but this reflection on what did he give me that was good? What did he give me that, it served its time and it's time to move on? I think you talked about with me on the phone. I remember a few weeks ago, things were coming together. I'm trying to think of exactly how you said it. I thought I was solid in my job and direction.
Yeah.
And it was driving you crazy, right? And I said, well, Josh, I've learned that some of those things that are driving us crazy crazy's the way. That's what needs to be entered into it. And I mentioned The Mandalorian, they have this code. If nobody's seen it, that's fine. If you've seen it, there's a way. And the path of discovery and what happens to him on this objective of taking baby Yoda back to this planet, as the whole storyline develops and he runs into some of the other sect of Mandalorians, it's the way. This objective, this challenge, it's the way. When I think I said, so Josh, frustrating is the way right now. That's where the gold is. That's where the gifts are. Don't try to solve frustration. Why am I frustrated? What's going on in me and why? Because clarity there could really be the gift that God's trying to give us, but we're holding on to our frustration, or it's shackling us, right? It's holding on to us. And if we do that, we either go to two places, anger or resentment.
Yeah.
That frustration is not going to stay a little weed in our garden. It'll bear fruit and it'll be an anger or resentment. And so that frustration is the gift. That's the way. It's the invitation. So with that, respond to that, if you would, because I think this is a really important piece. And then we can up in a minute.
So my dad was perfectionist, detail-oriented, could paint a straight line, loved painting, would spend, an hour cleaning off a $3 paintbrush, and he would expect you to do the same. For anybody in the construction industry, there's a very specific way to roll up extension cords and hoses. And if they're not, I don't care if it's 100 foot, he's going to make you re-roll it until it's good. Same with drop cloths. And he worked with other subcontractors, and he wouldn't work with certain people if they left their tools out. I said, Dad, why does that bother you so much? And he goes, they're just leaving their tools out. I asked him like 4 or 5 times and he didn't articulate it. And then I realized they were disrespecting the craft. And I was like, oh, that's deep.
That's big.
Because that was his breadwinner, right? That provided me and my family food. So the way, right? The question is the way. So my dad was a perfectionist. He was very detail oriented. He was very process driven. He can focus. I'm very opposite on a lot of stuff. I was the demo guy, right? Doesn't take a lot of brains to be a demo guy. I was the demo guy. Hand me a big hammer and he would set any project and I would just demolish it quickly. That last project we did together before he passed away, he was like, oh my gosh, I thought you were going to take like a week to do it. I did it in a day. It was fun for me. That was like an expression of my art. My art is destruction,
Deconstruction, destruction.
Yeah, that's right.
I love that about the podcast. That's what I think. You want to deconstruct, this idea of we're going to throw away the baby in the bathwater with masculinity. You are a deconstructor. You have a very skilled craft. That's really interesting. That's actually a gift for me today to hear you say that and to see how passionate you are about clarity and truth and the deconstruction of things that aren't.
Thanks for tuning in, listeners. We'll continue with part 2 of Rebuilding Who I Am next week.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of Exploring More. The landing page for this podcast is zoe.org/podcast. That's ZOWEH.org/podcast, where you can find the show notes and various platforms to which we broadcast. You can also find us and the Life of More by visiting Zoe on YouVersion Bible app, Right Now Media, our Facebook page, and Zoe on Instagram and Twitter. Remember, with God there is always more, and you were made for more.